Welcome back to the weekend wrap. No production, just my thoughts. As always, please like and subscribe. Share with a friend, colleague, relative, associate, enemy, and anyone else that you think might be interested in the content. It's appreciated. Now, I don't know how many of you probably know this, but last night there was 4 different fight cards on the zone. There was one in Germany, headlined by Felix Sturm. I think he was fighting Sucru Alte, who he fought back in February, where he won a unanimous decision, and this time he got a TKO victory in the 9th round. Haven't seen it yet. I did sort of glance at the card, but I didn't have a chance to actually sort of go through it. But we will talk about some of the other cards that took place. But before I go to there, I want to just talk about a couple of the fights that I saw on Friday at the York Hall Arena from a Queensbury card. Their Friday night fight cards has really picked up this year. Last year, a lot of their cards to me weren't great shakes. There was 1 or 2 that had a couple decent fights, but for the most part, they were too long and they were boring, whether you was in the arena or like watching on TV. But this year, I gotta hand it to them. Like the quality has picked up dramatically. Maybe it's the level of the even fights now, as opposed to maybe more like mismatches or people that you're building over the previous the previous year or so. But yeah, so I went there initially. I saw obviously I went to watch Raven Chapman's fight against Lucy Sedlachkova. Saw Hannah Rankin while I was there. Well wishes to her and her family. They've had some unfortunate news over the last couple of weeks, so hope that she's doing okay. But yeah, ultimately saw Raven's fight. Built into the fight slowly. I thought the first couple of rounds, Sedlakova was sort of working the jab very well, keeping range. Now, what I found out from afterwards is that they had planned to build into it slowly, because she had been fighting over the last 18 months sort of for Olympic tryouts. So they felt that she'd be a fast starter. But when you get past those first 3 rounds, that's kind of when it was best to sort of, push the pace, start to work the body more and to break her down. And it was a very good performance. Again, the first couple of rounds I was thinking, oh, she hasn't really got a range and everything. But from what they said, no, the game plan was just to let her basically get the work off early and then work into it when she starts to tire. Raven worked the body very, very well, as she does. Couple times I saw Sedlakova wince, like maybe she was potentially looking for possibly an exit strategy, but full credit to her, she stuck in there and gritted it out through the full 10 rounds. There was a moment where she actually did touch down on the ground, but the referee ruled it a non-touch, because he said that Raven kind of leant on her back, but Raven didn't actually touch her. Like she leant forward. Obviously Raven ended up hovering over her, but then hit her with a couple of shots to the ribs from the side. But I guess the ref must have felt that she leaned on her at some point, which I didn't see. But that happened on 2 occasions. And then towards the end there was a bit of holding in order to try and stave off the flow, but uppercuts, she was whipping in those uppercuts. Sedlakova's nose was pretty busted up by the end of the fight. But yeah, Raven won, unanimous decision. Very, very good performance from her. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next. Hopefully she will no longer be ranked number 14 in the WBC rankings. I've heard some stuff as to why that may have occurred, but hopefully that will all be sorted now, and she can get a higher ranking and move up, vie for those titles. The only other fight I was able to see, because I was actually there sort of waiting to conduct some interviews, was the Gavin Gwyn versus Emiliano Marsili fight. Now that fight, I've got to admit, I was thoroughly entertained by that fight. Emiliano is 47 years old and he was like 42-0-1. I didn't bother to look at the record. I just thought there's a 47-year-old in the ring, like just, getting busy, like moving. He looked like he had stamina for days. I was sitting next to his wife and his daughter, So they was extremely sort of animated, obviously cheering him on. The first 4 rounds, I mean, he was pretty much toying with Gavin, Gwyn. It reminded me a little bit of Bradley Skeet and Hamza Shiraz, where, you know, Skeet's he's got the movement and Shiraz just can't really pin him down. He's trying to get to the body, he's trying to close the distance, but Skeet's just too fleet-footed in the start. But when I was looking, the first thing I was thinking is, you can't keep this movement up for the 12 rounds of the fight. Like, I can see that, I felt sooner or later you're gonna wear yourself out, you're gonna tire yourself out. But what I was shocked about is, he took a couple of punches, but he was like literally just on the inside as well, slipping, riding, rolling under shots, like catching Gwyn, like, you know, off balance, like throwing uppercuts on the inside. He was getting caught with an uppercut, he'd come back and exchange with an uppercut. I'm looking at this 47-year-old, I'm like, Juan Emilio, I can't lie, that particular night he made a fan out of me, just for the sheer entertainment. Then he did start to move a bit excessively, I think, from round 5, 6. I think Gavin Gwyn started to maybe, he possibly was hurt a little bit, was either trying to get his legs back, or he was trying to frustrate Gavin to do something so he could maybe, you know, nick some rounds after. But I had him 4-0 up after the first 4 rounds. But then Gwyn started to come back into it, and then it sort of became more attritional. But yeah, credit to the old guy. He won about to you know, just call it a night or phone it in. He was going all out. But then in the end of the 8th round, he walked out of his corner, and then sort of the referee waved it off at the start of the 9th. So I thought, like, what, did he just realise he can't hack the pace anymore, and he doesn't want to, you know, suffer damage maybe with the wife and kids? I was like, what, has he quit? Like, what's going on? And then when he was at the corner, I saw by the corner, he's actually, I think at the end of that previous round, he had thrown his shoulder up, and you could literally see, like, the shoulder was dislocated kind of from the socket. And obviously some people will go on and contend with that, but I'm assuming he walked out like he was ready to carry on, even though it was hurting. But I think his team said no, you know, we're not going to do it. And at that age, look, at the age of 47, I have no qualms with him saying, you know what, I gave it everything I had. They won't let me continue, or I can't continue, so there's no point trying to, you know, go it alone with one arm, especially considering he was the much smaller guy. He was like 5'6.5". Gavin Gwyn's like 5'11", 6 foot. You know, he just a really huge lightweight. Very, you know, you don't really know how he manages to make lightweight. He's one of those kind of guys. So yeah, look, overall, I was thoroughly entertained with the performance and with the, you know, the fight as a whole. And I'd actually like to see Emiliano Marcelli again. You know, if he can possibly get a rematch, because obviously it wasn't stopped conclusively. You know, Gavin Gwyn didn't, you know, beat him up in that sense. So if they could ever run it back, yeah, I'd definitely go back to York Hall and watch that. It was a great fight. Now, moving on to the cards from Saturday. So obviously we spoke about the Germany card real briefly. I haven't watched it, and I probably won't. I've got way too much to think about. But there was also a French card, and I'm gonna have to go to my phone real quick just to remember the name. But I know Kevin Lily Saggio was the main event of this, and he was fighting the guy's name, bear me a moment, what's his name? So he was fighting a guy called Abraham Gabriel Bunariga. Now look, if you know anything about Kevin Lily Saggio, you know that this guy is he's relentless. I don't even know who I can really compare him to, but he is action, he is pain personified. I guess you could almost think he's a little bit like a super middleweight version of Subriel Matias. But just not as actually no, that might be the most apt comparison, except Subriel is a lot more tight with the guard and throws a lot more tight, you know, sort of tight short shots, whereas Saggio really sort of loops them in and wings them in. But yeah, it was just 4 rounds of utter punishment. It was carnage for 4 rounds, and it was beautiful to watch. So if you haven't seen that fight, I suggest you go and have a look, because yeah, in terms of action, it was amazing. And you know, shout out to Punch Perfect, shout out to Jamie. He said it last year. I co-sign it. I need to see Kevin Lilisajo versus what's his name, Christian Mabili. I have to see that fight. I need to see that fight. Like, that fight will be, you know, that will just be violence on a mass scale, and I need it. If we can get it made, please, someone sort that out and get that fight made. Yeah. Now, moving over to the Matchroom card. Real quick, I only saw 3 fights from that card. It happened to come on the same time Man United were playing Newcastle. Yeah, I know you could probably say you probably would have been better off watching the boxing, but you know, when the team's on, you gotta watch the team, innit? So with that being said, you know, obviously it was headlined by Michael Conlan and Jordan Gill. We'll talk about that fight shortly. But the fight I want to talk about mainly for the undercard was the Cameron Vong fight, where he fought the guy's name's Dufek, something Dufek, Mikhail Dufek, I think his name is. Now, Vong, very good performance as always. No issues with his performances itself. He was winning comfortably, winning handily, you know, and he was, you know, putting that work in. It was about the action. The issue I had was the way the fight stopped. Now, yes, Dufek was taking shots from Vong, but he was still lucid, he was still exchanging. Now, he wasn't winning the rounds, he hadn't won any round, but he was competitive. It's not like he was just taking sort of flurries and flurries and he just holding and hanging on for dear life. He was still trying to throw back. Sometimes he was hitting gloves, and occasionally sort of he was obviously hitting the target, just not with any real like pace and ferocity. Now, my issue is when it got stopped, especially, he was in the middle of tucking up from a barrage from Vong, and as the referee stepping in, he actually swings a left hook which actually lands and connects on Vong. So the referee has stopped it while he's actually in the middle of a retaliatory attack. And my issue with that is Vong was gonna win the fight. He was probably gonna stop him either that round or the next round, like legitimately. There was no need to give him a bogus stoppage, you know, or like, oh, to protect the other guy. The other guy was fine. He was unhappy at being stopped. He was still going, he was still carrying on. And the thing, what concerns me when you get sort of those ones, is if you get enough of those, all of a sudden you'll get people starting to root against you or not wanting to root for you because they feel like you're getting gift decisions, even though Vong was on his way to, you know, to actually, you know, cleaning up that work properly. So yeah, I thought the stoppage was bogus, but outside of that, it was a good fight for him, and a good little building fight, and another awkward sort of weird position guy for him to figure out. So his next one, I think they said they're gonna save him until next year. He wanted to get out on the Devin Haney card, but Eddie said no. So I think he'll be back out again, possibly January or early February. But in terms of his developments, going well. I enjoyed it. The next fight I was able to see was Sean McCone and Sam Maxwell. Now, I actually, in my predictions league, predicted that Sam Maxwell would get this one. I thought he'd actually get it via a UD, just because he's got the additional punching power. I thought the same thing that happened to him, where he got knocked down a couple of times, he might be able to knock down Sean McCone a couple of times, but Sean will just obviously be able to see the fight out, and Sam would just sort of impose more of his, I guess, his experience and his level and his power. But I didn't see any of that at all. That McComb, you know, I guess Sam Maxwell just couldn't deal with that southpaw stance, and you know, McComb's a mover, sort of just moving all over the place. Maxwell just he wanted to try and set his feet. He couldn't, you know, box on the move. So it just looked very, very untidy from him, and ultimately he just got extremely schooled, outbeaten and found out, which was a bit of a shame. I don't know what he does from there, but well done to McComb. He did what he needed to do, got a very convincing victory, and see where he moves on to next. I managed to see Kevin Ajarko and Troy Williamson. I predicted that Ajarko would win via split decision, and luckily I got that one spot on. Sometimes the decisions ones is a bit weird, but I did get that one spot on. I wasn't watching it in totality. I was watching it, but I was also watching the football, so I couldn't score the rounds, couldn't tell you kind of how I saw it. But the first few rounds looked very much like a Jarko was sort of controlling those, especially behind the jab, but then it looked like he was starting to get a bit overrun and bowled over by Troy Williamson sort of in the middle rounds, and then maybe was like pot shotting his way sort of to maybe nicking rounds towards the end. So that's kind of how it looked from, just from kind of what I saw. So I got to give Quietened Jordan the credit for the win. I don't know how you guys saw it. You can let me know if you thought it was legit or not. But yeah, he moves on. It'll be interesting to see what Troy Williamson does moving forward, but well done to Jordan. I didn't see the Tyrone McKenna and Lewis Crocker fight, but I know that Crocker won. I will have to watch that back, and then we have to go to the main event. And what is this? This is the second time in 3 weeks, whereby I have to give someone a huge amount of apologies and praise. Like Jordan Gill, he KO'd Michael Conlan in the 7th round, I believe it was. It was, pretty conclusive. He bossed the fight at 130. He looks a totally different proposition than he did at 126. He looks a lot bigger, a lot stronger. He's probably punching harder. I always knew he could punch, but I didn't think his punches was like that devastating. Even obviously I've seen him, with some pretty spectacular KOs over the last couple of years. But I mean, this is either Michael Conlan has absolutely no punch resistance left, or Jordan Gill is just a supremely stronger puncher at 130 pounds. It could be a bit of both. But I thought that, just the levels between the two, I thought Michael Conlan, just with those fundamentals, would be way too good. To switch it in and all that would just maybe confuse Jordan Gill. And, with the move away from, Dave Coldwell and all that, I just thought, okay, he's there for one last payday, which is how he was portraying it. I didn't actually know that obviously he was also doing a little bit of work in the background with, Ben Davison and Lee Wiley and that lot. And obviously he's good friends with Lee Wood. So yeah, I mean, look, whatever his game plan was to be the pressure fighter, clearly he realized that Conlan doesn't seem to like pressure, he can box with people, but when it comes to just having to throw needlessly or excessively, he just sort of falls apart. And Conlan put in he gave some good work of his own. Like there was a couple of times it looked like he might have troubled Jordan Gill, but for the most, he was taking a lot of those shots very well. So again, that's either that Conlan has, really doesn't have that much punch power, or that his punch power hasn't translated with the extra 4 pounds, or again, it's just a case that maybe Jordan just is holding shots a lot better at 130. I don't know which one it is, but I'm not going to say as to what Conlan should do moving forward, but judging on what he has always wanted to do in his career, I don't know if there's anywhere else you go. So we'll see. We'll wait and see. Jordan Gill, he said, look, I think he thinks he's earned a shot at a world title. I mean, personally, I would say that a lot more work kind of needs to be done before that takes place. But that being said, if he gets one as a voluntary, I ain't going to argue. I don't think he'll win. I don't think there's a chance he'll win, especially not against the champions that are in the weight class at the moment. But ultimately, hey, take your shot at greatness, innit? Congrats to him. Look, he had a very touching story at the end, talking about potentially wanting to kill himself last year and all sorts of things like that. But look, it's just brilliant that he came through that particular crisis. And yeah, you know what? Big ups to him, and hope that he makes the most of this second chance that he's got at either a career or whatever he's choosing to do afterwards. But with that, I'm going to move on swiftly to the Golden Boy card with Ryan Garcia taking on Oscar Duarte. Now, I actually wasn't able to see any of the undercard for this. I was busy. I was out at the time, but I did see the main event. The only thing, I saw that Floyd Schofield won his fight, first round KO. That was a pretty good performance from Floyd against Ricardo Lopez Torres. yeah, who like had never been stopped that early by anyone previously. But yeah, first round, just caught him really sharp with a springing left hook, sort of like early on where he was squared up, and he never really recovered after that. And then from then on, every shot hurt. So, you know, big up to Kid Austin and see what he does moving forward. He said he wants, you know, he wants the big boys. He said he wants Jojo Diaz next, or Jojo, I think, possibly called him out, and he said, well, I don't think he'll be calling my name anymore. But that's a fight I would enjoy to watch. I like Floyd Schofield. Yeah, so now, moving on to main event, Ryan Garcia. He did, I think the one good thing I like about his performance in here is that it seemed like he was listening and taking on the advice of Derek James. He had said in many of his other fights he gets bored in the fights and wants to kind of press the action, but I feel like probably in this one, because Oscar Duarte was always coming forward, always like sitting on his chest almost, or looking to sit on his chest, there was no reason for him to get bored or to have to press the action. He was, you know, there. Now the first few rounds he was doing well behind the jab, but then inexplicably he got caught with sort of like a flash left hook in, I think it was the second round. It didn't land heavy, but it landed enough, I think, to maybe course correct him. And then from there, I think Oscar Duarte was trying to go to the body quite a bit. So Ryan started employing this very weird tactic of sort of bending at the waist, almost turning extreme side on, to the point where like the guy's eye line is in line with the back of his shoulder, and is basically just trying to hold and protect his body and angle forward. It looked very odd and very weird. And you know, Duarte did hit him a couple of times in the kidneys, where the referee was like, look, stop that, not allowed to do that, rare. But it's like, well, Ryan's not giving him an opportunity to throw anywhere else. And I don't know if that particular stance looks to me like you've ultimately got your back to your opponent. So to me, the ref should ultimately be saying to him, look, you can't, if you turn your back, I'm gonna disqualify you, or I'm gonna think that you don't want to fight no more. But he a lot of the time, he literally had his back to the opponent, like trying to block shots, almost as like, I guess, saving to the guy, well, you know, you can't hit me from here, you can't hit me from behind. And it was odd. But that being said, I mean, I guess he was doing it to protect the body, and it stopped Duarte from being able to attack the body, which maybe Ryan felt something early on that he didn't like, or maybe there's a frailty down there that he hasn't told anyone about currently. Not sure. But he, you know, again, he started moving, then he started walking Duarte more onto shots, and Duarte had a very tight guard at the start, but then Ryan started to sort of chip away at that a little bit more, sort of a bit later on. And then in the 8th round, Ryan does what he does. He managed to roll back as Duarte was moving in, caught him with a sweeping left hook, you know, his signature punch right to the temple, and that just sort of kind of scrambled him a little bit, came back in with the right, and then all of a sudden, like, Duarte, you could tell that he was unstable. He tried to hold on to the rope and slipped off the rope, and then Ryan realized from there he had him. Hit him with a flurry, very little landed, if any, but Duarte was still, you know, hurt from that initial left hook. He went down on the knee. You know, referee was counting. I think he was looking at his corner, and then he did jump up at 10 or like 9.5. But everyone knows you need to show referee cause by the 8, or at the absolute latest be getting up at the end of 8 as the 9 count is starting. Some referees will let it go and say, okay, well, you did technically get up at 10, are you okay? But this referee, I guess, decided that it was, you know, that he had seen enough, or maybe Oscar didn't motion like he wanted to continue. I don't necessarily know. This one, it did look like it was more of a misjudge than anything else, especially as I don't think this referee spoke any Spanish, and obviously, even though he's motioning in front of him, he's still looking at his corner for instructions, and maybe the corner couldn't see the ref's hands correctly either. I don't know. I won't necessarily say, it didn't look to me like he capitulated, but he may have. Again, I don't speak. Well, I should say I didn't hear the Spanish that was being spoken, so I don't know what was said afterwards, but he looked visibly annoyed that the referee had waved it off. But ultimately, you got up at the wrong time. It's your own fault. So look, Ryan Garcia moves on. I mean, look, him and Oscar De La Hoya had a somewhat embrace afterwards. I don't know what that means for their career moving forward. It's a very strange situation what's going on over there. Ryan, I know he's talking. I think he's talking about the Rolly Romero fight now. I know Rolly still has to deal with the winner of Ishmael Barroso and what's his name? I'll put it in there. My brain's gone funny at the moment. So yeah, we'll see basically what happens moving forward. But I mean, I guess Ryan's got that fight, and if he can just get more active, if he's gonna stick around. 'Cause before he said he wants to retire by the age of like 27 or something. He's 25 now. If he is gonna stick around, if he just be active, get him. If he can get 3 fights next year, one for like, you know, February, March time, that would be good. And then just sort of keep that momentum and just see what you do moving forward. That would be a nice little you know, momentum starter for him. But we'll see what O'Hara Davis, that's the guy of, yeah, the brain works when it wants to work. But yeah, look, that's the weekend pretty much summed up. I didn't see everything. There's some other stuff I will actually go back and watch, because I probably will be interested to talk about on the breakdown on Tuesday. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. If there's anything, you message me in the comments and we can talk about any other things that you want, maybe you want me to address or have an opinion on. But yeah, we'll leave it there for now. Thank you very much for watching. Obviously more content coming up during the week. We'll see how we get on. But for right now, enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and hope you've had a great weekend. But until next time, peace.